Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Thursday, February 12th, 2026. And, if you're a developer, you know this feeling. You open up your favorite AI chat window, ask it for a simple web app, and 30 seconds later, you have code.
You have code, yeah.
But is it good code?
Sometimes, but usually it's this Frankenstein monster. It's mixing old Python libraries with React front-end that uses a deprecated router, and the whole thing just falls apart when you try to deploy it.
Exactly. I think we've all hit that trough of disillusionment with AI coding. We know it can write syntax, but we're finding out it's a terrible engineer.
It has no context.
Zero context, no discipline. It's basically a yes man that will happily write insecure code if you ask it the wrong way.
Which is why today's topic has been blowing up my notifications all week. We are looking at a GitHub repository that just dropped a huge update on Monday, version 0.4.7.
Oh, this is claude-skills, right?
That's the one.
Ah.
By Jeff Allan. And looking at the charts, it's already shot past, 1.7 thousand stars?
Which is fast. That's front page of Hacker News Fast.
Yeah.
And the promise is pretty bold. The description claims it can transform the standard Claude code tool from just a general assistant into an expert pair programmer. And it does this with, get this, 66 specialized skills?
66. Normally when I see a number that big in a repo, I just roll my eyes.
Yeah, feature bloat.
Totally. But here, I think that number is actually the whole point. It's signaling the problem it's trying to solve.
How so?
Because software isn't one skill, it's, a dozen different disciplines in a trench coat. You don't want the creative, let's invent something, part of an AI brain handling your database security. You want a specialist for that, a paranoid specialist.
Right.
This repo is basically saying the one-size-fits-all chatbot model is dead. We don't need a single assistant, we need a team.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Is this thing really a team of experts, or is it just some fancy prompt engineering? We're going to get into how it manages these skills, what they call context engineering, and what it all means for our jobs.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the what. You said 66 skills. That sounds, honestly, like a nightmare to install.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But surprisingly, no. And I think that's why it's trending. It just hooks right into the Claude CLI tool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you run one marketplace command, then you install the bundle you want, like the full stack one. It takes, I don't know, about as long as it takes to make a coffee.
Okay, so it's easy to get started, but what do I actually have then? What are these categories of skills?
So it's organized into 12 buckets. You have the obvious ones, right? Language specialist for Python, JavaScript, Shell, that kind of thing.
The easy stuff.
The easy stuff. But where it gets really interesting is the role-based skills. So there are categories for backend and front-end frameworks, infrastructure, testing, DevOps.
I'm seeing security and platform specialists on the list here too.
Right. And data and ML. But think about why that's so important. If you ask a normal LLM to, say, secure this API, it's pulling from its entire training data.
Which includes everything.
Everything. Good advice, terrible advice, Stack Overflow answers from 2015. It's just noise.
It's like asking a random person on the street for medical advice.
Exactly. So what claude-skills does is it forces the model to put on a specific hat. If the security expert skill is active, it's probably suppressing its creative writing side and amplifying its vulnerability scanning context.
So it prevents it from being a jack of all trades, master of none.
It enforces a persona. And in professional development, that's everything. You do not want your front-end designer making calls about your back-end architecture.
Okay, but here's the practical question. With 66 of these, do I have to manually call them? Like, do I have to type, hey, bring in the React expert now?
If you had to do that, this tool would be dead on arrival. No one would use it. The real magic here, the core of the update, is what they call context-aware activation.
Context-aware activation. That sounds a little bit like marketing speak.
It does, but functionally, it's brilliant. The tool scans your prompt. It looks for keywords for intent. If it sees you're talking about a NestJS API, it just wakes up the NestJS expert skill automatically.
Okay, but isn't that just a big if statement? If word is NestJS, then activate?
It's what happens after the activation that matters. When that expert wakes up, it doesn't just change the system prompt. It physically loads specific files from the repository into the context window.
I really want to drill down on this because this feels like the secret sauce. The docs give an example. If I say implement JWT authentication in my NestJS API, what is actually happening?
Okay, so a few things. First, the NestJS expert activates, then maybe the authentication expert. But the crucial part is that the system loads a file, probably called referenceauthentication.md.
Just a markdown file.
Markdown file, yes. But think about what's in there. It's not just, here's some code. It's a curated set of rules. It probably says, we use this library for tokens, and our guards are structured in this folder, and never, ever store secrets in plain text.
So it's grounding the AI. It's giving it guardrails.
Think of the LLM as, I don't know, a genius with amnesia in a giant, dark library. A normal prompt is just shouting, find me a book on auth, and the LLM just grabs the first thing it touches.
And it might be ancient.
It might be wrong. This tool gives the genius a flashlight and points it at the exact correct manual that the author wants it to read.
That makes perfect sense. It reduces the search space.
Drastically.
Yeah.
And it kills hallucination. If the reference server-components.md file is loaded for a React task, the AI literally can't suggest an old method because its entire context is full of the correct modern way to do it.
It's almost like context engineering is the new prompt engineering.
That's the term. That's exactly it. You're engineering the environment the code is born into.
Okay, I want to pivot now to the feature that, I'll be honest, kind of scared me. Because so far we're talking about writing pieces of code, a function, a component, but the docs talk about multi-skill workflows.
Right. This is where we go from coding assistant to something closer to an autonomous engineer.
It lists a workflow for feature development. And it's not one agent. It's a 5-stage pipeline. Feature Forge, Architecture Designer, Full Stack Guardian, Test Master, and then DevOps Engineer.
And that mimics a real-world high-functioning dev team. The order there is critical.
Okay, walk me through it. Let's say I type in build a new user dashboard. What happens?
So normally you'd ask ChatGPT that, and it would just immediately vomit out 500 lines of HTML and CSS.
Yeah. And it would be unmaintainable garbage.
Total garbage. It skips all the planning. With this workflow, step 1 is Feature Forge. It doesn't write any code. It acts like a product owner. It asks you questions. What data goes on this dashboard? Who is it for? What are the performance requirements?
It's forcing you to define the spec first.
Exactly. Once you agree on the spec, it hands it off to the architecture designer. Now, this agent plans the structure. He says, okay, we need a PostgreSQL schema with these tables. We need these API endpoints. We'll use React Server components for the front end. It makes the blueprint.
Still no code being written.
Still zero code. It's all planning. Then, once the plan is approved, the Full Stack Guardian steps in.
The Full Stack Guardian. That sounds like the grumpy senior engineer on my team who rejects all my PRs.
That is exactly the persona. Its job is to ensure consistency and quality. It looks at the blueprint and makes sure the back-end and front-end plans actually work together. It checks for security flaws before they're even written.
And after that?
Then the code gets generated. But immediately after that, the test master activates. It writes the unit and integration tests to prove the code actually meets the spec from the Feature Forge.
And DevOps puts it online.
Right. So you have this chain of custody. Each agent has one job. The architect doesn't care about CSS. The test master doesn't care about the database schema. By separating the concerns, you avoid that spaghetti code mess.
It's fascinating because it admits that the actual typing of the code is the easy part. The planning and the testing are the hard part.
Precisely. And look at the bug investigation workflow. It's Debugging Wizard, then Framework Expert, then Test Master, then Code Reviewer.
It's like a special operations team for bugs.
It is. Think about how you debug. You don't just randomly change code. You isolate the problem, you look up the documentation, you write a fix, and then you run the test. This just automates the discipline that we humans tend to skip when we're in a hurry.
Speaking of things humans skip, there's one command in here you called the secret sauce. It's the common ground command.
Ah, yes. My favorite. If you take nothing else away from this deep dive, understand this command.
The docs say it's for surfacing and validating Claude's hidden assumptions.
And hidden assumptions are the silent killers of every software project.
Give me a real-world example. Why is this so critical?
Okay, story time. Years ago, I was on a project. We brought in a new senior developer, super smart guy. We told him, build a high-performance microservice for notifications. He goes away for 3 days, comes back, and the code is beautiful, but it's written in Go.
Oh no, let me guess, your whole stack was Node.js.
The entire company was Node.js. We had zero Go infrastructure, no CI/CD for it, nothing. He assumed high performance meant Go. We assumed he knew our stack. We wasted days because we didn't establish common ground first.
And AIs do that a million times a day.
Constantly. You ask for a database, it assumes SQL when you use Mongo. You ask for a front end, it assumes Tailwind when you use something else.
So how does common ground stop that?
It's basically an interrogation. Before any major work, you run that command. The AI stops and says, okay, wait, before we begin, here are my assumptions. I'm assuming we're using TypeScript. I'm assuming deployment is on AWS. I'm assuming we want strip linting.
And you can correct it right there.
You have to. You say, nope, we're on Azure and we like our linting loose. It forces an alignment between the AI's mental model and your project's reality.
It's acting like a senior consultant.
It's acting like a good consultant. Good consultant always asks the dumb questions up front to avoid expensive mistakes later.
And this isn't just a simple script. I was digging through the repo. There are 365 reference files in there. That's a huge knowledge base it's pulling from.
That's the library. That's the common ground library. It's not making this stuff up. It's pulling from a curated list of things that go wrong on software projects.
This really brings the author's background into focus. The REME says he's a principal consultant.
Jeff Allan, yeah. That explains everything, doesn't it?
It lists technical due diligence as one of his specialties.
So his entire job is to walk into a company and find all the skeletons in their code base, all the undocumented hacks, the security holes, the lazy assumptions.
So he built a tool to prevent the very messes he gets paid to clean up.
Exactly. The full stack guardian, the security reviewer, these aren't just clever names. They're digital versions of a consultant looking over your shoulder, stopping you from creating technical debt.
He productized his own consulting business.
It's a consultant in a box. That's exactly what it is.
Okay, so we've covered coding, architecture, assumptions. But there's one last piece that really jumped out at me, the enterprise and project management integration.
The boring stuff that makes the world go round.
It lists 9 workflow commands for managing epics and, specifically, integration with the Atlassian MCP server.
Right, so MCP is the Model Context Protocol. For anyone not in the weeds, think of it as a universal translator that lets AIs talk to tools like Jira and Confluence without needing custom code.
So this thing can talk directly to Jira.
Which is a huge deal. The biggest disconnect in any large company is between the Jira ticket and the actual code. The ticket says user must be 18 plus to sign up, but the developer misses it and writes if age 12.
So claude-skills can read the acceptance criteria directly from the ticket.
With MCP, yes, it can pull that criteria straight into the feature forward step. It closes that gap between what management wants and what the engineer builds.
And it looks like it can even update the ticket itself. Discovery, in progress, review.
That's the implication. You're not just asking it to write code anymore. You're asking it to lead this epic. It moves the ticket, writes the code, tests the code, and maybe even writes the summary for the retrospective meeting.
That is incredibly efficient. It also leads us to the big, slightly uncomfortable question I wanted to end with.
I think I know where this is going.
If we have a tool that can define the feature, design the architecture, write the code, review the code, test it, and update the Jira ticket.
It handles the whole life cycle.
What's left for the human developer?
That is the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it?
I mean, if I'm not writing the code and I'm not even designing the schema, am I just a manager now? Am I just the person who clicks the approve button?
It forces a total shift in identity. For decades, being a developer meant you knew syntax. You knew where to put the semicolons. A tool like this says syntax is cheap. Logic is cheap.
So what's valuable? What's expensive?
Judgment and liability.
Liability.
Think about it. The full stack guardian says the code is secure. You approve the pull request. The company gets hacked. Whose fault is it? You can't fire the AI. You are still the one responsible.
But if I haven't actually written any code in 6 months because the AI does it all, do I even have the skills to properly check its work anymore?
That's the danger zone. We risk becoming like airline pilots who only know how to manage the autopilot but have forgotten how to actually fly the plane.
Yeah.
Or just watching green check marks go by.
That is a terrifying thought.
It's incredibly powerful. Jeff Allan has built something amazing here. But it asks for a level of trust in a black box that we've never had to give before. We're moving from telling the computer, help me do this, to just telling it, do this.
And the difference between those 2 commands is everything.
Everything.
Well, on that slightly chilling note, I think that gives our listeners some homework.
I think so.
If you want a glimpse of what automated engineering looks like, go check out Jeff Allan claude-skills and try that common ground command. See if the AI knows as much about your project as you think it does.
And just pay attention to how much you're actually coding versus how much you're just managing.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll be back with another exploration soon. Until then, keep coding, assuming you're still the one doing the coding.
And keep questioning the black box.